Castor is a film podcast filled with dubious opinions, plot spoilers, and a healthy sprinkling of bad language. Thanks for listening.
Hello, my name is Jim.
Keep going.
No, I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't. Hello and welcome to Castor. My name is Jim, and each episode myself and my two co-hosts Sam and Nick review one of cinema's much loved or unloved films with the aim of also serving you up a delicious recasting. Maybe not this week. But before we can get into that, don't forget you can follow and subscribe to Casserole over on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts from. And of course, don't forget those all-important 5-star reviews. We are sluts to the algorithms of the And if you wish to support Casserole, you can do so in a couple of ways. Head on over to patreon.com/Casserole podcast. And for the low price of $1, you can subscribe. We are working on things, I promise you. And if you wish to represent the podcast, you can do so by heading to tpublic.com, just search Casserole, and you can take home one of our lovely designs and show it off to all your friends.
Let me just ask.
Yes.
Unzip that hoodie.
I'm wearing one. No, it's a bit cold tonight.
Okay. You got it on there, yeah?
I've got it on, yeah. Of course, I'm representing, mate. We are recording.
Since it's gone on.
And you've already heard those two voices. They truly are awful. It's Sam and Nick. And as I said, my name is Jim. I'm all the other shite that goes into a haggis. We are Casserole. Let's review a film!
Hey! I think offal must be the most gross thing to eat. Like, I don't want to judge.
Haggis is amazing.
Well, but haggis is, I guess. Haggis is like...
But think of everything they put into it to make it palatable in the first place. It's the same reason, like, again, I swear I've covered this, where people are like, oh, I love oysters. But when they're eating oysters, it's like, I put a teaspoon of this on it, I put some Tabasco on it, like literally every flavour you can conceive to
I think I
mask
said before, but
the
like,
taste of it.
If the advice for the food is let it slide down your gullet, try not to chew or taste it,
It's
probably not
great.
nice.
Oh no, it's a delicacy.
Oh, delicacy. It tastes like salty cum. Delicacy, I tell you. Yeah. But haggis or like black pudding's worse, right?
I love black pudding.
Black pudding's amazing.
I like black pudding, but don't think about it.
Yeah, just get it down.
What is that? Fried blood? Oh, I love some fried.
That's very topical for today's episode.
I think before the humour gets going, I think Sam did want to take a moment at the beginning of this episode to just kind of reflect on the passing of David Lynch, who sadly passed a couple of days ago. Yeah. A visionary in both cinema and TV, I believe, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is.
I only really know his version of Dune, despite the fact I've not seen it.
Yeah, so that's obviously for me the big thing. Like Twin Peaks, obviously, but that never really spoke to me. But I'm not a massive fan of the new Dune films, and I feel like it's because it doesn't have that kind of visceral, kind of gory, kind of otherworldly sort of scenes that unsettle you and stuff, which David Lynch in the sort of 80s Dune is just amazing.
Also just like the real sort of 80s camp kind of magic that it just had it was just infused with that kind of magical madness. Yeah,
just like the navigators being these weird kind of floaty creatures. And I remember like if you've got that, what's that disease called when you can't look at like lots of little lots of little holes?
Oh god, yeah.
But you
like
know the one,
yeah.
Trichophobia, something like that, where you can't like look at lots of. Yeah, it's really gross. But the navigators in the David Lynch Dune have this awful skin that just triggers it, and I don't have it, and it triggers it in me.
Yeah,
and these weird like noses that like spray out like spice, and just everything about that film was like stuck in my mind, and it's brilliant.
I totally agree. I feel like that's where the modern films or the modern remakes of Dune fell a little bit short for me. Is that they've taken themselves a little bit too seriously, and you kind of. You can go for that.
Did they do themselves an injustice by doing the whole 2-part thing that's kind of infamous in cinema these days?
I don't.
By trying to just whack in too much.
I feel almost like they had to because of the scope they were going for and the breadth of the content. Because I think there's a lot of material to cover. I just feel like everyone's taken themselves a bit too seriously, and it is a spectacle, but it is just a bit like, who cares?
I think like to take it. You know how you were always saying that actually, like, you know, films like Deadpool versus Wolverine, there's a huge amount of gore in that, and it's like it's kind of acceptable now. But I feel like in the Dune films, they had license to do that amount of like gore or like really kind of make stuff that makes you sort of wince and almost body horror type stuff. And they just didn't. Like Duncan, obviously played by Jason Momoa in the new ones, he dies like this really heroic death where he's like fighting loads of Sardaukar and he like dies with like loads of like stab wounds and swords. And the Duncan in the David Lynch one is trying to defend and basically gets a nail to the forehead.
Nice.
And doesn't manage to do anything.
Yeah.
And it's tragic. And it's like shocking. And you're like, oh my God. And then like, Paul's being carried away and he sees his best friend die and he's shouting after him and Duncan can do nothing because he's just had a nail to the forehead and he dies. That is shocking. That is brutal.
It's an image that lives with you.
Yeah. Jason Momoa fought loads of guys and died a heroic death, like taking loads of people with him.
Yeah.
Fuck off. We've seen that 100 times.
Yeah, we don't want that anymore. Come on.
It's not, they don't take any risks. It's just like, oh, okay.
It's just cinema trope 101, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, so back to the very sad passing of David Lynch, I think it is like a massive loss in terms of the impact that he's had through, you know, being a visionary, being on the fringes for a lot of the stuff that he did, the ways that he took that kind of more into the mainstream with things like Twin Peaks and other material. But yeah, same as you, like the Dune, that 80s Dune is the thing that I really know him for. And I think it is, in its own great nostalgic 80s way, is kind of a classic, a cult classic.
Yeah. So thank you, David Lynch.
How have we been watching anything this week?
Yes, I want to go first.
Go.
You really,
I want to go first.
You're claiming this to be an early contender for your film of 2025.
Yeah. Spoilers, it's not the film we're reviewing. It's not my film of 2025. But this one might be. I think it possibly came out last year, but I've only just seen it. The Substance.
Demi Moore.
With Demi Moore.
That's not from what I've heard about it, not the kind of film I would have put down as being on a contender list for your film.
I don't know anything about it, so I am very interested in this.
It's touted. I mean, it's called a horror film.
It's like a body horror, right?
Yeah, and it is a body horror film, but it's like also sort of a black satirical comedy, and
Sounds up your street.
Right on my street.
It's just I can't talk about it without spoiling it.
Yeah.
But two things that are literally perfect about it. One, the trailer. The trailer gives away nothing of actually what happens.
Very
in the film.
rare that happens these days.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Because I watched the trailer and I figured like, oh, okay, I kind of know what happens. She like takes this substance and she sort of swaps bodies, or she changes into this younger version and she's got to sort of change back in that. The way the change happens, the reason she has to swap back, like everything about it is I like edge of your seat, mouth open, glued to it every second. And I'm somebody that, pride myself or hate the fact that I can kind of see the endings of films. And I kind of like, I know the way this film's going to end, it'll be her comeuppance type thing. And then that didn't happen. I was like, oh, well then it's going to end like this. And it's going to kind of show like, oh, it's not a happy ending. And then that didn't happen. And the ending that happened, I was like, fuck me, I didn't think that was going to happen, and that's the best ending.
Nice. Oh, cool.
So I don't want to give any spoilers away, so I can't really talk about it. But she has won a Golden Globe, and I don't know what order Oscars and stuff go, but yes,
Oscars are I believe the next.
She should win the Oscar, hands down.
Wow.
Just for how brave she is. She is like full nudity, no makeup.
So is there anyone else in the film that kind of makes it worth watching?
Yeah, I mean everyone
beyond obviously Demi Moore.
Well, I don't know the name of the actress, but the actress that plays the young version of her, I think this might be like maybe not her first film, but like an early film for her.
Yep.
She's fantastic in it.
Yeah.
But like hidden gem, Dennis Quaid. You know I'm a Dennis Quaid fan. Dennis Quaid is in this as literally the most awful human being to have ever walked the earth, but he plays it so perfectly. And I think it's one of those films where, you know, beforehand you hear stuff on like social media, that like women love it and men, you know, think it's awful and can't believe it. I watch it, I believe it. Men can be fucking awful. Accept it. Accept that men are fucking shits.
That sounds amazing. I
And
can't wait to watch that.
it's so good. And basically you're like, you know, I'm somebody that I understand why and don't judge people for doing like cosmetic surgery, but don't do cosmetic surgery. It never, ever, ever looks better. Ever. I've not seen a single person who looks better after having like this Botox and these fillers and stuff. And this film is just like, where is it all going to end up? And it makes you ask questions, and it makes you just look at the world and just think, fucking hell.
Really good that we're seeing this renaissance of a lot of older actors who have had kind of almost had like their stardom
their heyday.
to an extent. Yeah, like, you know, we you know, just like one example, like Hugh Grant coming back in the Heretic film and other recent stuff. Like, it's really good to see it. It's good to see them like in a different part of their career where they're embracing projects that are a little bit different, a little bit more daring, maybe.
Something that you wouldn't normally associate them with.
And I think,
and lower budget studios as well. And that's
well, you're
never
now
a
seeing
bad
as well,
thing.
like especially like obviously Hugh Grant, but it's not unheard of for like men to kind of work throughout their careers. But it used to be a thing where, you know, female actors would say, "Well, I get work until I'm like 35, 40, and then I have to wait until I'm playing the Grand."
Yeah,
like you're literally you're like the young hot stuff or you're Maggie Smith.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that was like and now you're seeing
you're young
that.
hot stuff or you're in Alien.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're in Cocoon. And now, you know, you're seeing with, you know, Demi Moore, Renee Zellweger, you know, Gillian Anderson, all these people that are playing through their sort of, you know, 40s and 50s and 60s even and stuff. And, you know, they're just killing it. It's just they're
still getting these major leading roles and absolutely rocking
you know,
it. Yeah,
they're proving that they're more than just what some people have said they are. So, all for it. The substance.
I mean, you've sold that to me.
It's amazing.
I think I'm going to have to watch that before we record next time.
It's reassuring, if nothing else, as well, that there are big impact films getting a lot of attention that aren't. Because I feel like over the last kind of 5 years or so, been so dominated by, you know, the Marvel industries and all those kind of big blockbusters. It's great to see these kind of much more daring films.
And there's a place for that. There's a place for popcorn cinema. Sure. And there's a place for, you know, really avant-garde, you know, kind of cinema. This isn't either. It is entertaining and fun, but when you finish watching it, it stays with you.
Well, I'm glad we made that statement because, you know, what I've watched is very much popcorn cinema. It is very much...
I've seen Ernest Goes to School.
It is very much one of these companies that has dominated the cinema for years. So I watched Mufasa.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Is it?
Really good.
See, that's one of those ones where I'm like...
It's so much better than the Lion King live action.
Well, yeah.
Like, loads better. Like, the animation is so much better. Obviously, you've got it accompanied by the music by Lin-Manuel.
Oh.
It's so good. It's obviously, I think this is one of those stories that they have. I believe it is a story that I think some of the animated films have tried to tell before, in like how Mufasa became who he is, and how Scar became who he is. But it's so good, really is worth a watch. Such a fun family film. Ever since we've watched it, the soundtrack has not been on our you know, it's just like every time we get in the car, the first thing our son asks for is, "Can you put the Mufasa soundtrack on?" And obviously my wife obliges because she loves it. I mean, I love them as well. Some of the films the songs are just excellent. It's just a really fun film.
Do you know what? For the amount of complete shit he spouts sometimes, isn't Jim incredibly wholesome?
Well,
quite a lot of the time.
It's
just nice to see, I think.
You know my analogy of like the actresses, whether they're either the young stuff or the Maggie Smith. That's like Jim. He's either talking complete weird shit or he's like, "I love musicals." It's like, what the fuck? It's so like you've either got one or the other. There's no middle ground.
I am like the human embodiment of a Kinder egg. You don't know what you're gonna get inside. You might luck out and
But
get
Americans
this
choke on you.
I'm banned in America, me.
Yeah.
You know, you might luck out and get the big heavy toy, or you might look at that. Oh, what's this shit? Not the tap that you're going to throw away 10 minutes later.
That does sound good though. That does because I have to say I watched it and I was kind of like, not.
Oh,
Really
they're just
bothered.
milking again this.
I mean,
franchise,
that's what I thought it was. When I first saw the trailers, I was like, oh, really? Do we need this story? I mean, we probably don't, but it's worth the watch, in my opinion. Especially if you've got a young family and they're going through that Disney phase. Absolutely show them it.
I think it just goes to shows if you attach the right people with the right motives to the right project.
Lin-Manuel Miranda,
right?
You attach him, it's
you're fine.
amazing.
Yeah. Then you're going to get something that's at least decent.
Yeah.
Well, you're at least going to get a decent soundtrack.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
No, I think at one point we're gonna have like a film which has got him and sorry the name escapes you, whoever has done Wicked, and they're just gonna make a film that's like, that's it. It's gonna be the Rapture. We're just gonna go to heaven. Yeah. It's gonna be the best. Like it's just gonna be the pinnacle of musical cinema.
Just all musicals. Don't bother anymore.
Yeah.
It's been done. You're not bettering it. Just give up now. As you will remember, this is a film chosen by Nick, and we all went on a lovely little podcast trip to this cinema.
Cinema romp, if you will.
Lovely little cinema romp to watch. Why did I try back now?
And that's it, everyone. Thanks very much for listening.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. No, it's because I was trying to remember the fucking bloke's name.
Don't remember his what? As in
No, the director.
Orlock.
No,
the director.
Eggers. What's his name? I can't remember his name.
What an awful intro.
Right.
Guys, we're reviewing.
We went to the cinema to watch Nosferatu.
Yeah.
And we are now going to spend a bit of time reviewing it. Cool. So, before we give our little initial thoughts, Nick, would you like to do us the honour and give us a summary and a little breakdown of what people can expect of this film?
Yes, I can give you a summary. Yes, I can do it. Yeah, so this is Robert Eggers'
That's his name. Old Robbie
big
Eggers.
passion project, you could certainly say, because for a long, long time he's been fantasizing and planning and thinking about making a Dracula film. So Nosferatu is a 2024, though we've seen it in 2025. It's an American, very much gothic horror film. And it's a remake of the 1922 classic silent horror film Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, which was made by F.W.
What was that date? 1920-22.
Did I say 1922? Yeah, it was 1922.
What?
That's 'cause-
That is like thousands of years.
And I know we travelled back in time to talk about the remake that was subsequently 80 years later. No, 1922.
You've said it again!
1922.
1922.
Silent horror film Nosferatu, yeah. And that film itself was based on the 1897 novel Bram Stoker's Dracula. So this was, and in fact, I think what's interesting about this is that this film is very much a remake of the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, which itself had to kind of play around a bit with the original names, the scripts, that kind of story, and change a bunch of things from the 1897 novel Dracula for copyright reasons. So there was a bunch of stuff that they couldn't use directly, such as certain names and things like that.
Like Dracula.
Because they didn't want to be sued. Yeah, so this film stars Bill Skarsgård as the epitomous Count Orlok, who is basically Dracula, who's Nosferatu in the film. It also stars Nicholas Hoult. It stars Lily Rose Depp. It stars Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, Simon Pegorny, and of course, Willem Dafoe. So this is like an amazing star-studded cast.
It's a stacked cast.
It's a stacked cast. But yeah, this was in development. Robert Eggers had been planning to do this originally as like his second film, I think. And then it was delayed for a number of reasons. And I think for a long, long time he'd been planning to make something that was based around this story. And I think even in like school or college, he'd put on and written a play as a performance in school. So for a long, long time, this has been a passion project of his, and it's finally come to light through this. It's very much a period piece. It's very much kind of a faithful interpretation of this source material. And that is what we are reviewing today. And I must say, I was sat in between both of you in the cinema. Two very different, what I felt like reactions from the two of you sat in between you. I had you on the right of me, Sam, constantly like chuckling jokes into my ear throughout the film, which I enjoyed very much. And I had Jim kind of, I think, like could hear that we were joking, probably thinking like, what the fuck are they talking about? But I got from you, Jim, like throughout the film, like a number of sighs, particularly towards the end. I was like, is he falling asleep? And I was wondering like, interesting. I wonder how, initially I was like, oh, he fucking hates this.
I don't recall sighing.
Yeah, like a lot of you were like, I love the film.
Really?
Yeah, so I was like,
Are you sure I wasn't just heavy breathing?
It was probably his awake snoring.
I don't recall. I mean, I will cop up here. I felt my eyes get really heavy towards the end.
Okay.
But like,
You're
not
getting
to the point,
sleepy.
I mean, I had been up since like 3:30 that day.
Fair.
But not to the point where I fell asleep. I felt them kind of go, but like, I was like, ugh, kind of forced them back awake.
And I'd just like to say, I was telling jokes not because I wasn't into film, because it was a way of me getting through it, because it was quite scary. I was like behind my hand.
I wondered if that was like your little like, I'll make light of these.
Yeah, so all this week I've kind of been like, because all I hear is you two giggling the whole time. I was like, are we going to have this one of these reviews where like we really don't agree with anything, and I'm going to be on one end of the spectrum, and these two are going to be on another end of the spectrum, as they usually are. But Nick kind of told me in the car it was just because you were making silly jokes.
It might still come to fruition though.
So anyway, should we give our? I want to go first. My brief thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
So can you first just tell us like what's your? Obviously, we've all come into watching this.
Yeah.
Different backgrounds of the background story of Dracula, of any previous films.
So I went in with absolutely no notion at all of kind of what to expect.
But what kind of Dracula films have you seen before? For example, you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, with Gary Oldman.
I don't know.
Keanu Reeves.
No.
Okay.
I don't. I probably have seen a Dracula film somewhere along the line, but I couldn't tell you what or who.
But obviously, the character of Dracula is.
I'm aware of the
ingrained
character.
into all of.
I'm of course aware of the
yeah.
character of Dracula because he's very much big in just all culture anyway.
Yeah.
But as for what I was going into, not a clue. Like obviously, I was really expecting to hate the film. So I went in with the precondition.
Why were you expecting to hate it? Was it because you thought it was going to be scary?
I just wasn't expecting it to be a film for me.
Okay.
So I was going in with the pre-notion of, I hate the film already, prove me otherwise. So that's what I wanted from the film to do.
That's a nice way to impartially review a film, isn't it?
That's what he's like when he was dating, he was the same.
Well,
You're going to be awful, prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong.
Because it's not traditionally the type of film I would watch,
yeah.
and I would normally hate.
Yeah.
I wanted it to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
So I was like, so that's what I went in with. I went with an open mind still of, I'm ready for this film to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And I cannot, for the life of me, decide what I think of this film. Because there are times watching that film where I was fucking loving it.
Yeah.
And then there were times when I was like, this is just silly guff. This is just rubbish.
Can I guess to what those points were? Was it like the dialogue heavy, very kind of Pride and Prejudice kind of period drama moments?
That what?
That you didn't like?
No, I was loving all that. There was just a lot of...
His favourite film is Pride and Prejudice versus
I don't know, it was just like a lot of my issues are with Bill Skarsgård.
Really?
I think a lot of him was just rubbish guff.
Really?
I found the character of Nosferatu which is actually kind of weird when I actually get round to just talking about what my favourite scene is actually.
Yeah.
But I found that character just really just a bit of silly nonsense a lot. All the rest, like a lot of it I really, really liked, but then there's just bits I was like, oh, this is just guff. And it was just like, so annoying because it was so close to me being like, this film is fucking excellent.
Really?
Really, really was. But then I was like, it just annoyed me. Really annoyed me.
Yeah.
That a lot, I think when it became him actually being more vampiric and actually sucking on the blood more, that's when I was like, oh, this is just silly nonsense.
Right.
And that's why I think when it just took me out of it, and I think
when it was finally revealed,
I kind of got a lot of that.
Much.
I kind of actually got that sense from the actual cinema as a whole because I did hear a lot of chuckling and laughter towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
When he is just being more vampiric. And I was like, yeah, I get it. It just felt really silly towards the end but the lead up to it, I was loving it. And then it just kind of just jumped off a cliff for me.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. Should I go next?
Sure.
So I almost was the complete opposite of Jim in the way I approached this. Like, The Lighthouse and The Witch, which obviously The Witch is is terrifying, and I hate that. But they're both incredibly good films.
Yeah.
And especially The Lighthouse. Or The Lightkeeper. The Lightkeeper?
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse, yeah. It's very good. Excellent performances. It's brilliant. And it's one of those films that sort of left on me. So I was expecting good things. And the cast is brilliant, and a lot of the cinematography is excellent. And I think probably the sound design is fantastic. But I'm a bit like Jim. I don't know how I felt about the film in the end. Like, if I'm truly honest, I think I felt like that didn't need to be made. Like, it had nothing new to say about the Dracula story. And, like, I was watching it and I was, like, my mind was just, in certain scenes, putting in Gary Oldman or Keanu Reeves or Leslie Nielsen from Dracula Dead loving it, or, like fucking Luke Evans from, like, the Dracula film, or, like,
Sure.
it so many bits of it were just, like, okay, like, yeah, we know he does this, we know he does that. And I think slightly differently, actually, when he was revealed, and there's a scene at the end where he's fully revealed in the light of day. Spoilers, but no. And he is a frail old thing. Pathetic and tragic. And that is the point of Dracula, is he is supposed to be a tragic character. And he has all these powers and stuff, but actually the simplest thing, daylight, destroys him. And he is revealed to be this terrible creature, not something all powerful at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind that as much, and I actually thought that Bill Skarsgård's performance was very good. I like the voice, although it is easy to make fun of it because it is very.
It's really gone for it there.
It's really gone for it.
There's
But
a lot
actually,
of breathing,
it is quite good. Yeah. Like, I think it would have been terrifying to go, hello, welcome to, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You couldn't have took the film seriously if you was doing that. If you looked at it was just the Count from fucking Sesame Street.
He has to talk. And I thought the stuff actually with Herr Nock was really sort of disconcerting. And
just tell us about that character.
Oh, sorry. So Herr Nock is the person that's in this sort of German town that sends a Nicholas Holt's character to... Is it ever said as Transylvania? But basically this other...
It does say on the map. It says Transylvania,
So
but they
sends him
never
to Transylvania,
actually name it as Transylvania.
To do the classic, like, sign the papers and stuff. And it turns out that he's, working with Nosferatu, and he's like
part
of the occult, and he's he's crazy, and
follower number one.
He's sort of the Renfield character, and the performances were good. And I did say to you, like, there's two little girls in this about the same age as my kids, and I leant over to Nick and I was like, if those two get it, I'm gonna fucking lose my shit. And I was not happy about that scene at all. That was pretty tragic.
Yeah, they certainly got it.
And like as anyone that's a father, the idea that you're helpless in bed as your children and wife are getting that
butchered.
That is pretty horrific. But yeah, I just left, and I think I've been trying to think of it for nearly a week now, think about how I really feel about it. And I'm like, it was entertaining. It was incredibly well made. I can't really fault it other than saying, I don't think I'll ever watch that again.
So go on then, Nick. This was your choice. So what was it about this film that you wanted us to do, and why you wanted us to cover it?
So I think that I've been trying to get us to watch some great horror films, unsuccessly for quite a while.
We'll do air quotes on the word great.
Well, yeah.
Well, great.
We may still not have.
Yeah. So I guess I felt like this was an opportunity, given that it was a big cinema release. There was a fair bit of hype around the fact that this was Robert Eggers', this was his Dracula film. And it just felt like a good opportunity to get us all in that I could probably get you into the cinema to watch this off the back of that. And I think it's not like it wasn't helmed as being that terrifying that you would be like, no, fuck that. There's no way.
It was scary. It was about my level of scary, I would say.
Okay.
See, that's probably another reason why it felt like I got no fear. There was no scenes that scared me.
See, for me,
all the jump scares were so predictable.
Some of the jump scares got me, but for me, I don't like the sort of the shaking bodies and the sort of the arched backs and open mouths. That gets me. I don't like that stuff. That like.
Yeah. So that was kind of what I was super interested in, because I feel like on reflection, I've come away with a really similar viewpoint to both of you, actually. Like, I was really going in to think, like, I'm ready to be blown away by this. Like, show me the Dracula that should have always been made. Like, this will be the epitome of the Dracula story. And, it was really interesting. I mean, like, a phenomenal cast. I think maybe, for me, there's only one weak point in this cast. I think Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok gives a terrific performance, right? Is sort of transformative, is imbued with dread, and is a really interesting reimagining of the Dracula character. I'll come on to in a minute, maybe we go into more depth, kind of where I feel like actually the way it's written lets it down. I think Nicholas Hoult as the Thomas Hütte is kind of he is the guy that has to go to the castle and kind of spend that really dread-filled time with the
He is
Count.
probably better than Keanu Reeves.
He's really good. I feel like he's really good. Lily Rose Depp, I think, is phenomenal. Like, for me, I've seen her, and she's been loads of stuff before that I hadn't seen.
Yeah, she is phenomenal, actually.
She's really good, and like she's sort of like hamming it up in the really kind of like period drama scenes, like dialogue heavy, kind of, it's very sort of Pride and Prejudice sort of era stuff. Willem Dafoe, I just think is brilliant. He's having a lot of fun.
He actually was the second weakest for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like he was doing just enough.
I really liked Willem Dafoe.
See,
yeah.
I feel I was just like, oh, okay, sort of do Green Goblin a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just like
that's what I was getting with Bill
fine.
Skarsgård. I thought maybe he felt like he was doing a bit Pennywise with it.
Well, yeah,
That's probably why I felt it was a bit silly with his Nosferatu, because I felt like he was maybe still doing a bit Pennywise with it.
It's hard, I think, because he's basically the Van Helsing character, right? Although he's Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz.
Van
Franz.
Say that 10 times while drunk.
So he's like this alchemist, mystic doctor, who's basically the one they bring in to figure out how to defeat Count Orlok. I think that they could have gone with the much more kind of young and vigorous vampire hunter, but they played it differently. And I like the way that they went with it. I like his performance. I think Emma Corrin was really strong. I think Ralph Ineson, who's the doctor in this.
So for me,
he's just so good.
He's the best thing in
But
it.
he's just almost like underplaying everything. He's just good.
So this is the thing. I had missed him in some of the other, because he'd been in some of the other Robert Eggers stuff, and I'd missed that he was in that, and he's been in quite a lot of stuff that I just haven't realised. And so when I first saw him, I was like, oh, that's the guy from The Office. This like a complete knob.
He's the other one of the other bosses. Yeah,
he's like the guy that's like a real douchebag.
Yeah.
But he's brilliant in it. He's stole the show for me. And
really
also
good.
his character is the most heroic, because he's not got one of his wives to try and defend. He's not like this crazy scientist who's got something to prove. He's just a doctor trying to do the right thing. He is the hero in this. He's the only one that like does it just for the goodness of his heart.
I also think he's central to one of the big themes in this film, which is around, and it's almost like a sub-theme, but it's about, in this era as well, kind of male ownership over women's bodies as well, because there's a lot around there's all of Count Orlok's sexual ownership and desire and all that kind of stuff, but there's also a lot around the female hysteria And kind of, there's a lot of where the doctor's saying, oh, she's got too much blood in her body. We need to drain her, or we need to administer opiates and stuff. So a big theme of this is about kind of sexual conquest and male ownership over the female body. I think he's central to that kind of sub theme.
But it's done. It's not done with malice from him, is it?
No,
it's an innocence.
no.
He really
He's a product
thinks
of
he's
the
helping.
era. Yeah,
he really. It could have been easy to make his character like almost like sadistic, but he really cares about his patients. He doesn't like the idea of putting them down in the old dungeons. Like, when people are like, filling up and there's no more space when the plague hits, he's like, we'll have to find room. We have to look after them.
Yeah.
He is a good character.
Yeah.
He just is a product of his time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we've got Simon McBurney, who was hair knocked, like you said. So he's turns out to be the actor of Count Orlok.
He's my favourite performance in the film.
He's having a good time in this, right?
He's coming.
He's just biting the heads off pigeons and
It almost
loving
looks
it.
like he was told, be Ozzy Osbourne, ramp up to about 20 and be fucking mental and just have a whale of a time.
He's like drawing devil stars on the office
thought he
floor,
was
naked, covered in
fantastic.
blood. Yeah, he's having
He
a
was
good time.
fantastic.
Yeah, he's good. So the weakest part in this cast for me is actually Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who plays Frederick Harding, who's this wealthy shipbuilder, friend of Ellen Hutter and Thomas Hutter. So he's a friend of the couple. Ellen moves in with them for a bit whilst Thomas, so Nicholas Holt's character, is going off to visit Count Orlok's castle, basically. Yeah, like for him,
I agree with you. He almost, for me, felt like it just didn't need to be in the film.
I just felt like he's trying a bit too hard. His English accent was passable. It was just kind of...
I mean, I should hope so, because he is English, isn't he?
No, he's American.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know, actually.
He's the guy...
No, he is English.
originally
He is
played
English.
Kick-Ass.
He's English. I should fucking hope his English accent's passable.
Okay, he's English. All right, yeah, well, he's all right then. Thanks.
So you should hope he's got a
he's
passable
English.
English accent.
Didn't know that.
He's
But
in
yeah,
Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
very
but
young,
not
yeah.
because I wanted to.
That was quite a good film, actually.
So, even more interesting then, I just feel like he's trying a bit too hard. He's probably a little bit out of his depth amongst the quality of the rest of this cast. And I feel like he's miscast in so much as his character, I would have wanted to see it's almost like he is like another leading male part in this cast. Because he's a very attractive man. He's very sort of dominating male presence. It wasn't needed. Like he needed to be more of he could have been a Daniel Radcliffe. He could have been
be in the background a bit more,
or slightly more kind of eccentric. He could have been like a Stephen Merchant type sort of. And I think that would have been much more interesting than this kind of slightly macho.
rather than be a
work.
more macho version of Nicholas Hoult.
It didn't work. Yeah, it just took away from
The thing is,
rest.
though, I think if I'm gonna give him his due, one, I think he actually was in a difficult position because his character is the least interesting of all the characters.
Yeah.
Massively, yes.
So he was
But
kind of
I
sold
think
down
that's
the river.
partly
a bit.
his performance as well. I do think.
I do agree, but I think the reason they cast him is because for audiences that maybe know nothing about. Let's take it that you know nothing about it.
He's
You're
like an
he's
yeah.
going to be the hero
Yeah.
of this. He's going to save the day. He's going to be the
Because
vampire
he's got that
hunter.
look about
he's
him.
gonna he's going to be and to be fair to him, his character probably does more than you would expect someone of that time to do. Like, he goes through a lot and he stays by the wife of his friend. The character is needed, and I don't think it should be somebody that is. I don't think it could be like a Stephen Merchant or like a Daniel Radcliffe, because I think the idea is that he's supposed to be this sort of heroic character that then in the end is so impotent.
But I agree. I think it would work better if it was written in a way that either you take it in one direction where it's played by him and he's slightly more of a dick and more kind of misogynistic and leans really into that, or you take it in the other direction where it is played by someone else and he's slightly more snivelling and weaselly. And I think both of those directions would have played off the rest of the cast better. And
This is why it's so difficult for me. Is the cast is so brilliant.
Yeah.
Like,
Such a good
even
cast.
Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who might be the weakest one, is still very
the
good.
cast is still
Yes.
phenomenal. Yeah.
And I'm like, what is it that's missing then?
So-
If you feel like maybe the same way.
Because, I mean, for me, atmospherically, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So brilliant atmospherically. I've seen a few takes online, and I actually think I agree with them. I think it'd be better if it was filmed black and white.
that would have been an interesting. It would have made it much more.
I
like
think
a
I
niche
see a lot.
film,
I've seen a few of
but-
these takes, and this is clearly a film that should have been filmed black and white.
I think then,
and
though,
I
it would
think
have-
I agree with it.
I think that would have felt maybe just pandering to the old one.
Do you reckon?
And I kind of feel like because he did that with the Lighthouse already, it would have felt like too much of a throwback to that, maybe. But I do know what you mean. It needed. I agree that it needed something to separate. So, right, what I thought was really good about this film, I thought all the good Robert Eggers stuff was there. Right, the building of atmosphere, the world building was phenomenal. The cinematography was for like all of those amazing. Those classic staples that we see in like The Lighthouse, The Northman, The Witch, like those slow panning shots where it pans for a while and then it comes back around again. All of that was there. Like some of the scenery, the way this was shot was phenomenal. Right? It looked great, this film. I thought it was a really interesting portrayal of Dracula. I thought the building of dread was phenomenal. I thought there were really fear-instilling moments in this film. I thought that it was a really interesting, clever choice to kind of hold back the Count Orlok Nosferatu character for so long. First of all, we just get his voice.
Yeah.
Then we get slightly sort of like fuzzy shots, like he's not in focus. We get like the clothing, the presence of him much more. I thought that a lot of the ways that it was faithful to the original film, like the use of shadow, where we see like the long nailed hand shadow over the city and stuff. So much of that was great. I just wonder if it's hamstrung itself a bit too much by trying to stay so faithful to the original in terms of story. Because really was, if you go back to the original, like it's so much of it is a play-by-play of kind of that. And I wondered just whether it could have been a little bit more brave.
Almost.
Yeah, and it could have been a bit more brave in terms of just taking things in a slightly more interesting or shocking direction. Could have just made for a more thrilling experience. I think that the final thing that I think where this is fell wrong, I think, is going back to the Count Orlok character. What it didn't have that, say, like Bram Stoker's Dracula had, that Dracula was kind of fearful, horrible. They had this bloodlust, but was also kind of sexy
And charming.
charming, but was also this incredibly kind of sad and lonely character, which is hinted at with this character, but not. It was never a moment where you really feel sorry for this character. You never ever you like. Okay,
Well, no,
I can
this one
kind
you
of
just
understand.
you're just under the impression he's looking for his retirement home.
He's a prick, isn't he? I mean, this guy, like, this is a character that just like by the end of it, you're like, well, thank fuck for that. He's left these people alone now.
I don't think they really explain, or at least I didn't feel like. So he like, what does she like call him by accident?
Yeah, that it just started with her summoning him, and then
Yeah, like a
suddenly-
younger version
but
of
they
him,
never
but-
really kind of.
But does she
Why-
accidentally
why?
do like
Yeah.
a ritual? Or?
All you get really
Didn't
is
really
that she
explain
was.
why she did it, or was it accidental? Did she do it on pur- that I'd have liked a bit more.
And was he like asleep until then? Did she like raise him?
Yeah, I did get that impression, but yeah, why did she do what she did at the beginning of the film? Like, that never really got explained, did it?
So he's meant to be this ancient entity that was once a man that basically sold his soul to the devil.
Yeah.
For immortality, and it's given him this horrific kind of afterlife and bloodlust and appetite. And again, like he's the other integral part to this whole appetite for women's bodies and their blood and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think the beginning, like she's in this bad place. She's upset. She's desperate for something. Like she's calling out to whoever, like whether it's God, whether it's kind of spiritualism. And what answers her instead is this Nosferatu being. And that's how that whole like inseparable bond is caused.
But what like there must have been, especially at that time, it's so bad. There must have been hundreds of people being like, "God help me."
Yeah.
What made him choose?
Well,
her?
yeah, it's not really. I agree. It's not
Like,
really.
were they close to each other?
There
Were
was
they-
no. It just came out of nowhere. Is and that's kind of what the original I think had as well. Is just this like embodiment of evil. But again, what the original did was create this kind of forlorn, lonely, pathetic character that you partly of you was like. There's a sadness there. In this case, there's just like a nastiness and an evilness, and that's what I think was missing. It was interesting that it was imagined differently, but it didn't bring you in. You ended up not caring. You kind of just wanted it to be over for everyone, didn't you? Because it was all so like grimacing and sad.
I'll tell you.
I'd also like to have seen a bit more of the rat plague. Because I had that for
Great
me,
sentence there.
Well, no, just for me, one of the most
just in general.
one of the most uncomfortable bits in that film for me was when Emma Corrin's character was getting eaten by the rats. That had me. That had me cringing because I was like, ooh, and scrimming. I'd have liked to have seen just a bit more of the impact of like the rat plague.
And like the whole ship, when the ships come in, that's a great tension builder. And then the ship arrives and it's like a plague ship, all the rats come off and it's like, oh fuck, he's here, like, he's arrived. It was really cool.
So this is, for me, I think I've finally sort of put my finger on it. This is now a film of two halves for me. Not a football analogy, but up until Nicholas Holt's character jumps out of the window of the castle and escapes.
You're right.
It's fantastic.
It's superb, isn't it? Absolutely phenomenal.
You've got his journey. You've
so
got
good.
the.
I would have made that journey much longer.
Yeah.
Because they kind of just did a cut, didn't they?
Well, they
I can understand why. You didn't want to do like a fucking Lord of the Rings journey,
but
did you?
actually, if this had kind of been a bit more Apocalypse Now, and like it was his slow descent into madness, getting closer to the castle. But like,
but then do you not feel then that it would have rushed the castle?
I wouldn't have done anything outside the castle.
Well, it almost could have been.
So you would have just had the
I would have made this film about him trying to get there, right? And he would have been in the village, and he would have seen that because there was amazing scene where he sees like a weird.
Ultimately, Nick Holt defeating Nosferatu.
I wouldn't have had that. Listen, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
All right.
God, he keeps interrupting. So, the Nicholas Hoult character in the village, he sees that weird stuff
That
the
whole
first
thing
night.
was great.
That was brilliant.
Scenes, yeah.
Then the next day, maybe there was a terrible storm, or the roads were closed, and he couldn't get to the castle that day. So I had to stay in the village another night and saw something else weird happen. And he was slowly getting crazy, and you know, maybe he was like lost in the like in the woods or in the mountains and couldn't get any closer and was going crazy and
then he loses his horse
and then the weird coach turns up, which was terrifying. That that sound of the horses and then the silence.
It was excellent.
And the way it was filmed, you like didn't know which direction it was coming at him.
And then, you know, it was going and the walls behind him, that was also scary. And then when he's at the castle, like, you know, I would have maybe pulled back and not had Orlok like greet him straight away and, you know, maybe tried to find, you know, there's a storm coming
that
and he
was
tried
weird.
to find
When the carriage turns up and Orlok's, I was like, oh, this is the footman or whatever. Yeah, like going to show him in, and then we're going to build up to meeting him. Oh no, that was him. It's like, follow me.
But like, if you'd have had that, and then more at the castle of like the insane kind of tricks he plays on him, and he's feeding on him, and he's still not seeing it. But then at the end, rather than him escaping, Orlok's kind of like, thank you, really interestingly, I'm going to go and find your love now. And leaves. And Nicholas Holt's character's impotent, left in this like castle, like insane.
So we're left
not able to help. Yeah, and you're left to see what might happen. What terrible things would this character that's tortured this one person do when he's released on the world?
So our takeaway from it would be, what did he do next?
Exactly.
So you wouldn't ever show any of that.
No, because all that lead up, all that Nicholas Holt's character's descent into madness and the power that Orlok has over him is so interesting. And then after that, like I said, it turns into like Dracula Dead and Loving It, where he's like, I eat the people on the ship. And then they crash. And then there's some rats. And then I kill your children. And then you'll come to me in 3 days when I kill your friend.
It became very kind of melodramatic. It almost like it didn't know what it wanted to be, what its strength was going to be. And you're right, so much of that at first was so good.
Like, Lily Rose Depp was amazing, but I'm like, there was no real like, you didn't feel like a force was affecting her. Just every now and then she started fucking wigging out, and you're like, just shut the fuck up.
I think that
she's having a bad trip.
Yeah, and I was just
the hook of that relationship previously had always been she was kind of haunted by, and it invited this evil being, but there was also a kind of sexual but almost deeper sometimes connection between them. It was almost like, I shouldn't love you, but there's all of that going on. With this, it was really like this just horrible creep that wanted to jump her bones, and she's like, will you fuck off please? And then it was like, no, you're going to have to do it to save us all from this curse and stuff. And so she was like, well, okay. And it was just like a really shocking ending with the way that the sunlight hits him and stuff, and that was shocking, but it was a little bit satisfactory.
Also, can I just say,
Also a bit predictable.
Well,
Yeah.
they almost had the chance to redeem it, in my opinion, when the sun comes through the window and Orlok looks up and he realizes that like he's going to die. If there had been a moment where he looked back and realized that she'd betrayed him, and that hurt him emotionally, you would have suddenly felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because you would have felt like he's finally got that connection, and however awful and terrible it is, he's just somebody that wanted a connection and thought that she had given that to him, but it was a trick to kill him. And
there's that betrayal,
there's that
and
humanity.
That pain. Yeah.
There's that betrayal. There's that like.
I think to add even more to that, I think if he'd finally got to be with her, and the power of that or whatever had kind of invigorated him, and he went from this husk to like back to a youthful, and then was betrayed, even more so, it would have been like you would have felt like, that's tragic now, but as it was just kind of like, well,
and it's like,
God, this
the
is
sun. That's
keep
not
drinking.
good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Also,
We've basically all come away with pretty much the same thoughts.
I think the mustache was a mistake.
You do
I
the
do.
mustache, the really hooked nose.
I know that like historically,
he says this mind sporting a mustache right now.
Yeah, but like
Hypocrite.
But I'm not trying to be an emaciated feral animal with no hair over my body, other than an awesome mustache.
You just live that life.
If you go back to the original silent film trial, it was that kind of bald-headed, big, elfy ear kind of.
Not big
nose.
mustache.
Not much, but they couldn't just do exactly that.
But I think like it weirdly, as soon as you saw that, he just wasn't as scary.
Yeah, I agree.
It would be like Voldemort with no nose and a scary thing, but
a
goatee. Like it's just like, what the fuck? Like are you trimming that?
Yeah.
Are you like combing that and keeping that?
Yeah,
in
that would
shape?
almost.
Are you looking in a glass shard every morning
that he cares about?
Yeah, like.
Because you know that time when in the castle, when Nicholas Holt's character is stumbling around trying to get out or trying to deal with the situation, finds Count Orlok's coffin, opens it, and Count Orlok springs up and he's just stood there naked. And I think that's almost one of the first times you get that full kind of, he's in front of you. And he's just there like, you get it full. Well, apparently, as is often the case, the actors took home some mementos from filming. So Lily Rose Depp apparently took home the locket that was of the couple.
Yeah.
Nicholas Holt took home and framed the prosthetic penis.
Of course he did.
From Count Orlok.
Of course he did. Why wouldn't you? Is there a favourite moment from this film that you can point out that you have?
What do you go on? You go first.
So for me, obviously, I've said that I've kind of felt Skarsgård and Nosferatu was a bit guff, but he's actually part of my favourite scene, and that is when you first meet him in the room. Nicholas Hoult sat at the table signing the paperwork, and then obviously the camera work as it's panning on. It gives this impression that he is just kind of teleporting around the room. I thought that scene was just chef's kiss. Just how the fire, all the flames flickering, the atmosphere, the lack of sound or minimalistic sound, and just the way it panned. I was like, I fucking love that scene. And then just kind of
downhill from there for you.
Not down their hill from that point, but obviously that just the more and more we got into the whole Nosferatu, that's when I was like, but like with Sam, everything in the castle up until that point was just I'm on a 5 meatball scale.
Wow.
I'm 5 meatball in
You're
it
up there.
up until he jumps out the window. And then it's just and
I'm not really sure. I'm not the tension out of it when he escapes.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where I'm still not sure where I'm landing on the meatball scale.
Well, I think it kind of should. It's such a shame, right? Because at that point, it should ramp up the tension even more. Because at that point, it's meant to be the race. It's the race to get back to his wife.
Back to his wife. Back to the city.
Yeah.
Nosferatu's on the ship. Thomas is on a horse.
But that
ship versus horse. The ship wins.
But it takes away on because he's just in a coffin on the ship.
Yeah.
Like if he was, transformed into bats or whatever, and he was hoofing it flying over.
I think that would have made it even more silly though.
Yeah,
if it went stereotypical and he went, fly my pretties. I think that would just make it. I think that would have become so much more silly.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think. Go on, you go. What was your favourite Favourite scene, Sam?
Oh, well, I was just going to say about your favourite scene. Was it a prosthetic animatronic hand that Nosferatu had?
I don't know.
Because they were almost like artificially long and skinny.
They were, definitely prosthetic.
There was definitely some kind of prosthetic.
I think that was a mistake.
Do
It
you?
looked like
the big long fingers.
And the
not
nails.
necessarily the look, but the way it moved felt a bit like
Felt a bit fake.
yeah, it felt like when you have those like big hands and you sort of squeeze them and they sort of do that like weird movement. And
Because you can't quite bend the finger properly.
My mind did flip to Scary Movie 2, and I almost would have been, "Yours my strong hand." It was just like the movement was a bit like animatronic-y.
It's because it wasn't bending right. The knuckles.
It wasn't bending right, and maybe that was
looked a bit
an
unnatural.
idea.
Yeah,
but I think actually, if you just like had someone's like emaciated hand with makeup,
be enough.
And kind of like Bill Skarsgård is like able to kind of manipulate his hands much more like fluidly, because all they kind of do is kind of like flick open and kind of
that's all they could do. Open, close, and the fingers
so
are
that
rigid.
kind of ruined that scene for me a bit. Weirdly, this is definitely like analysing it. I'm losing a meatball almost every time I think about this film. I don't think there's one scene that really stands out. There are elements of scenes, like I really like the bit where Herr Nock is revealed to have this sort of demonic, drawing on the floor.
He's
and
like in a
naked and has
pentagram
the
on the
book
floor,
and he's
that's
sort of using his blood to
quite
write.
an unsettling scene, isn't
That's
it?
quite good. And then the bit, where Nicholas Hoult is, trying to get through and the coach appears and it just spins silently, and then it suddenly cuts and you get the sound of the wolves. That made me jump and that was scary and stuff. But a whole scene, I don't think there is.
Wow.
I think, no.
Wow.
I don't have a favourite scene. There are elements of it, but every scene is kind of either pointless or ruined by certain bits.
Wow. As we were watching this film, I was convinced that you were going to be coming out of this as loving the film.
Wow.
I was watching thinking, this is probably hitting a lot of Sam's boxes.
Also, sorry, I have a least favourite scene.
Go on.
Oh, okay.
The bit where Aaron Taylor-Johnson goes to the mausoleum to visit his family and he pushes back the coffin to look at his dead wife and he kind of kisses her and dies with her.
Suddenly he's got the plague.
She should have fucking jumped up as a vampire.
100%. Yeah.
What
and
a
the girls.
miss.
Yeah.
What a miss of these suddenly should have jumped up
But
and
again,
they should have attacked
Do you
him.
think the reason they didn't do that is because it's too tropey?
But otherwise, you're again tropey. At least it would have made me jump. At least it would have made me feel something.
But then you've got 3 more vampires to worry about.
Exactly.
The whole point of the film is
like-
you're focusing on Nosferatu.
It was meant to be a singular threat.
If you introduce 3 more vampires, now you've got aliens.
No, listen.
You've got from alien to aliens.
Those people turn up and they see, because these don't have to be like vampires like we know, like they could be feral or not formed or not understanding. If they turn up to that mausoleum and see his dead body being feasted on by his wife and children and they have to burn it and they scream inside this mausoleum as it's burning, that's a scene.
I think it would be more chilling if it was just the children, because the wife was killed by the rats, right? So technically, it'd be
she wasn't. She was just left for the rats.
She was left. She was killed by Nosferatu.
Yeah, okay.
And this, and I think just like, again, this is the thing. Like, yes, it would have been tropey. Yes, it would have been something, but it would have been something that I think about, as opposed to, and I don't want to use this a lot, but it was just a scene in a film. So yeah.
What about you then, Nick? Do you have a favourite or least favourite scene?
I really enjoyed, and I know you didn't, Sam, as well. I know you liked it, Jim. I really liked Willem Dafoe's performance because I just thought he brought in the right amount of kind of crazy eccentricity. Yeah, he was obviously really enjoying the role. I think a lot of whereas I found a lot of the period dialogue kind of a bit, this is a slog, his delivery on a lot of it was really fun, and I think his scenes were written really well, so I enjoyed a lot of his delivery. I thought his performance was really, really good. I think in terms of favourite scene, I probably would go back to the carriage scene as well, just because I think that is a culmination of that much stronger first part of the film, and that dread and the tension building and just the way that it was shot, like you said, the use of sound, the sudden silence of the carriage was really strong. And I think, like you said, I just so wanted that to continue building. And I think the minute that it was like the Count walked downstairs to meet him, like, don't do
Hello!
that. No, send someone or
Welcome
just,
to my house.
Just have the door open and then
20 guinea a night.
he's got to walk in on his own. Yeah, and like, it's just odd. Like, a lot of odd choices. So sort of like splitting this film. But that would probably be a favourite scene for me because it was just like stunningly filmed.
It was really good, and just like you hear the and you see down this perfectly straight road.
Yeah.
And
but
you still don't know which direction.
No, and you're seeing horses, but it doesn't really look like horses, and it's just coming, and like, why is the sound of horses coming towards you so terrifying? It was ridiculous. He didn't just stand to the side.
I would say that there's like just take a step.
Rather than just stand in the middle of the road with your lamp going
for so long.
Yeah.
There is a version of this film that would be like an amazing spoof. If we were still in
Dracula
like,
Dead
10
Loving
years
It.
ago, if we were
Seriously,
in
have you
Spoof
seen
Town-
Dracula Dead?
No,
Loving It?
I haven't.
Have you seen Dracula?
No.
Dead Loving It? Right, go watch Dracula Dead and Loving It with Leslie Nielsen. He's the guy from the Naked Gun
Yeah, I know
films
Leslie
and stuff.
Nielsen, yeah.
It is hilarious and has always been one of my favourite films, and maybe a blessing on you both that you didn't see it first.
Yeah,
because it is one for one, and you've got like the two women in it, and one of the things is like the two women like, oh Lucy, you've been killed. There's a character in it which is Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, and Willem Dafoe's character is played by Mel Brooks.
Great.
So it's like, we gotta kill the vampire. It's so brilliant, and like. And Leslie Nielsen as Dracula is just coming down the stairs, and he falls and trips, and his shadow's just like, oh god, like it's so brilliant.
Well, Leslie Nielsen is just brilliant.
Yeah.
His physical comedy is just great.
Right, both of you watch The Substance, but also find and watch Dracula Dead Loving It before the next recording, and we just come in here because that is a fucking 5 meatball film. It's so brilliant.
Do you know what I was thinking about this film? Thinking of sort of more comedy elements. The gothic horror element, there were parts that made me think back to, and I haven't watched this film for a long, long time, so again, maybe I've got like rose-tinted glasses when I was much younger and enjoyed it. Do you remember Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, especially the carriage scene.
Right, the carriage scene.
Yeah.
You've got Johnny Depp, you've got Christopher Walken's The Headless Horseman.
Yes. You've got Christina Ricci as like the love interest.
Yes, like that, I remember that being really, really like there's a lot of images from that film. Yeah, like really scary moments. But what it did really well was that it appreciated that the source material at heart was so kind of like pompous and kind of melodramatic that it leaned into comedy elements as well. And I think a lot of that was through Johnny Depp's characterization.
It's a Tim Burton, isn't it?
Yeah, so a lot of that helps well. Have you seen it?
Sorry, Jim.
I have seen Sleepy Hollow. I think we actually covered it for maybe media studies when I was in like sixth form in school.
Oh wow, yeah.
Or eight or GCSEs or something. And I remember really liking it.
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow's good.
Movie casserole.
Gentlemen, do we take this time to give a meat?
I think we've spoken enough. Let's give our final meatball rating.
Right, I'm going to go straight in. This was, I came out of it thinking like, oh, it's such a good film. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, it was all right. So I think there was a lot that it did well. I'm going to go in at A. And I think this is a generous 3.5 meatballs.
Sam, would you like to go next? Or
Yeah, I'll go next.
go on then. I feel like you're the low guy on this.
Yeah, it's really
Which I must say has surprised me.
No one saw this coming. Yeah.
No, this has really shocked me that you were the low guy on this. Or that at least you sound like you're the low guy on it.
I am going to be, and I don't want to...
That's interesting. This got like a lot of 5-star reviews as well.
But again...
But a lot of this is like... I generally find a lot of these people that do give these 5-star reviews are your like Empire magazines, your Total Film magazines that are probably... They're paid to do it. They're paid to probably be nice to a lot of these directors.
I certainly hope not as impartial publications.
I don't know if that, but I don't reckon they're as impartial as you think.
I definitely think there's a little bit of like, oh yeah, I gave Nosferatu by Eggert director 5 stars.
I think there's such a thing as jumping on the artistic bandwagon, and so assuming it will be a masterpiece. But you can't blame them for maybe having
not
blame
them.
You're the one that said, I went into this thinking I'm going to fucking hate it.
Yeah, but I still went in with an open mind. But I still I was expecting to hate it, but with an open mind.
I'm gonna say what I give it.
I know that sounds weird.
I'm gonna say what I'm gonna give it, and then I can explain it. It's 2 meatballs from me.
Ooh.
It's 2 meatballs.
Wow. Low.
In terms of my enjoyment of the film, I'm almost like you. If it had stopped point blank dead at the point before he jumped out that window in the castle, it would have been a 4.5 meatball film. It built so well, it established its characters so well, and then it found out halfway through the film that it had nothing to say about these characters that it had built. There was nothing new, nothing interesting, and to use it in the light of day, they were all found wanting. And it gets 1 meatball for my enjoyment of the film and how I felt after it, and it gets another meatball because it was incredibly well made. The cast was stacked and they acted their pants off, but it is not a film that needs to be out there. It is not a film that you need to see before you die. Like this will probably end up in like the top 100 films to see before you die, and you don't need to, guys. Other films have done it better.
I don't think you're wrong.
Other films have done it more interestingly. I'm sorry, mate. You've remade a film, but why?
I think this is a better made film than, say, Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it's not a better film.
Yeah.
Better made, it's not a better film.
Yeah, it's a better film. It's got a better cast, arguably. Like, you know, we all joke, but Keanu Reeves' Renfield is wooden and not great. But you know, Gary Oldman's Dracula is a fully fleshed out, interesting being.
Yeah,
it's like
a relatable. In as much as he's alien and evil, has relatable.
You want to know what
human,
happens. In this one, you're like, oh god,
can he please just leave everyone alone?
Yeah, just you know. And the thing that I leant over, there's a scene right at the end. I leant over to Nick and I did say a joke, and at that point I wasn't really. I was still invested in it and wanted to see it, but there's this scene where like they're like, the only way we can kill this beast is to burn his like hiding place, burn his castle to the ground, and they're there doing that as Orlok's at the house of Lily Rose Depp's, and you see through the window his castle massively on fire, and I leant over and I was just like, hey, is that my house on fire? And you're just like, you could like, there's like, you could see his house on fire.
I think we were saying that because like it needed that at that point. It was like, oh, this is so like,
because it's so like, he's like, come to your 3 nights. And I'm like, oh god, can we make it just one night? Come to her one night.
But
so
that was why it was like at the end. It was just like he's just like this annoyance. He's like this horrible curse. It's almost like the curse of like the worst dinner party guest you could possibly imagine.
And also, it's not even fucking hell. I might give this 1 meatball. It's not not even at any point do they get thwarted. We need to go and burn his house down. Okay. They go and they burn his house down. And they're like, what did he do? What was the big twist? How did he get out of it?
Maybe that is an argument actually for your extra minions.
Right, yeah.
Because that would be something to thwart them and at least get in their way.
There's a trap door, or we can't get in, or there's something that when you open the thing, there's a curse, or there's flies, or bats.
Or have the wolves. The wolves there, yeah.
Well, you know the rat guy?
Yeah.
Like he was the one that was in the
come
coffin.
back into it. Oh,
and
he does.
They kill him. Like they put the stake through his heart. But he says like, oh, he promised to make me Rat King or something. And I was there thinking like, I wanted more of the Rat King. Like,
yeah,
could have got
the Rat King sounds cool.
He had like thousands of rats, like, and he was like riding a wave of rats or something.
Skipping down the street with a flute.
They've got to deal with him rather than like, oh, we dealt with that. We'll run back to that. Like, they should have been preoccupied with a threat.
He said to like Lily Rose Depp, like, I'll come to you every night for 3 nights or whatever. And then they like went to his house to try and kill him. And then Nicholas Hoult was like, oh my God, is it the house of my wife? It's like, yeah, that's the thing that he said he was going to do. Like, he's just done the plan.
This isn't news.
But he's only said that to her.
All right, but like...
She hasn't told him.
But like, they know that she is his target.
Yeah, don't leave her alone.
Why didn't they bring her with him to like lure him back to his house or something? Like, it's like he texts like, I will visit you at 5 o'clock on Friday. And then they go to his house like, where is he? Like, where I said I was going to be. I said Friday at your house. Why are you at my house?
Yeah. Or don't be at that house then. If he's coming there, we'll go to the next room.
1.5 meatballs.
Oh
Oh,
man.
he's lost another half a meatball.
Wow.
1.5.
Wow.
1.5 meatballs.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, well,
But-
it's making me feel down now as well.
Well, I mean, look, I kind of given an idea of where I was at with this film. Like I said, for the first half of this film, I was on a 5 meatball train.
Yeah.
I was loving every second of this film. With just how atmospheric it was. It was the acting was great. And then, yeah, it just, like I said, just jumps off a cliff or out of a castle window.
Yeah.
Quite literally for me. And that's when I started to feel like it got a bit guff and a bit silly and just unnecessary. I think I'm going to land around similar kind of way as you, Nick. I'm not nowhere near as low as you. I'm definitely not. I'm definitely never probably going to see this film again. It is a film. It's a film that just
I'm
exists.
glad I've seen it. I wouldn't go back.
I will watch Rebel Moon before I watch this one again.
Fucking hell.
Wow.
But is that because like there's more to pull apart and there's more?
Maybe.
Probably just because you had more
to
fun
get from.
ripping at the shit.
But it's also it's more fun. People do shit, and you're like, I know that you want the grain. Go get the grain, boys.
Basically, what you're saying is you wanted Nosferatu to have the grain.
Yeah.
But
How much
I
grain?
think ultimately I'm gonna land on 3 meatballs.
Oh, I think that is very generous.
Maybe
I
I've been
think
too-
I'm.
Oh, am I too
I feel
generous
like
all
I
of a
am.
sudden?
I do think I'm
3
being generous,
meatballs.
but
3
yeah,
meatballs
I
for
think
this
there's a lot more that I've enjoyed than I haven't, and I think the strength of that first half does make up for the weak second or final third of the film. So yeah, I think that's why I can land on a 3 meatball.
Going back to the maybe the comedy version of this film that it sounds like we all want to see.
Oh my god, Dracula Dead loving it.
There's a version of this though I think where like Orlok is just that kind of guy that no one wants around. Like he'll turn up to the house party and everyone opens the door and he's like, "Oh hey."
Yeah. What do you mean my breath smells like garlic?
Everyone's just like goes quiet in the party like.
Now, I mean, as you know, we've given our opinions. I put out a call for opinions as well.
No.
We've had a couple of responses. One from the Horrifying History podcast, who said that they love the cinematography, they love how it was a slow burn, and the acting is excellent. Excellent. With that said, if they had cut 20 minutes out of the movie, I think it would have been better.
Yeah, probably not wrong there.
And
yeah.
The last 20 minutes.
And then, a friend of the podcast, Joe, he's going to be really upset. He's been desperate enough, our opinion. He said, can't wait for your opinion, because he absolutely loved it. He said, if we didn't like it, he's going to be having a conversation.
Oh, mate.
Joe, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to contact Sam.
Mate, I'll have that conversation with you, because if you love this film, you've got problems. You need to watch some actual good films.
I'd be interested to see Joe's subsequent thoughts after what we've discussed on this episode.
Yeah, I don't think we've been unfair.
I mean, I might have been overly critical, but I think I'm so disappointed because I think
I think that's to be expected of you because you are more. You've got a lot of film knowledge, so you probably you'll pick up on a lot of things that I won't pick up on. You're probably expected to be the more critical of the three of us.
Well, I don't know. There's things that you pick up on in films, Jim, which are like no one else would have.
I don't know how a husky can run 90 miles.
Husky.
Deep snow.
To
Kind
be
of
fair,
tired.
to be honest, I actually it's quite refreshing because I think I'm usually way too kind to films. Like I'm always the one when you come up with something being like, to be fair to it though, maybe this and that. And I'd just like to caveat, this is a brilliant film. Like in terms of fair play, you got an amazing cast together, you got it made, it looks beautiful, like it's out, it will be successful, like well done. Like I not in patronizing way, but like anyone that makes a film and one that is this competent, this good, fair play. But it just left me so cold inside. And I almost think that is worse than any, terrible B-movie film that you're like, no, that was fun. This is like, no, that was just fun.
I wonder partly if it's so much as that hinges around what is ultimately a unsatisfactory ending. Because it did sort of just fizzle, didn't it? It was just like...
quite literally.
And it was, you finally got that slight tragicness from, in the end, this figure of Count Lorlock on top of, who is also now dead, Ellen Hutter, was like this shriveled up, like, tiny limbed, horrible little creature. But...
I felt no sadness for her death either.
No, yeah, it was just kind of
it's-
which was such a shame because her performance was phenomenal through so much of this film.
It was, but actually now thinking about it, sorry again.
He's going to lose
sorry.
another half a meatball, isn't he?
it was
Gone down to
brilliant,
1.
but it wasn't. It because she was having these kind of like seizures and fits in her sleep, so it almost wasn't that scary. Like if she'd not been able to sleep and was plagued by visions, and every time she went in a room saw his face and was jumped and was
More of that,
terrified,
yeah, more of that.
and knew he was coming and
Yeah.
couldn't do it. But just like every night she'd be like,
Maybe if she was having the convulsions and it was more just she was frozen with fear.
Yeah,
Rather than just
or
like throwing herself around the room, it was like she was literally couldn't.
or
move
like
in bed or
they were
something.
walking through a crowded street and everyone's face was Orlocks, or like
Yeah.
stuff like that. But it was just
Yeah, I know what you mean. Actually, like some really good horror moments where like there's a shot and you don't think there's anything else in that shot apart from her, and she leaves the room maybe, and suddenly something moves.
Yeah,
Oh, he was there the whole
like
time.
that,
More of that. So he was much more of a presence.
one meatball.
Wow.
No, one and a half. That's fine.
So, with that all said,
Yes.
shall we move on to the Mega Wheel?
Forgot about Mega Wheel.
Well, not this week.
Oh, gosh, there we go.
I've been a bit of a sneaky boy.
Where
I took to socials and I asked people what they would like us to cover.
This is what happens when we leave him entirely
We
unattended
got
on social
a
media.
very interesting response. Good response. I'm going to read you the short list of films that they want us to cover.
Oh God.
And we're going to put
we get
those
to
onto a
pick?
wheel.
No. The film has already been chosen.
Oh.
I set up several polls throughout the last week, and they were these films were voted on. I got it down to a final 4,
Okay.
and a winner has been chosen.
Okay.
Oh, so a league table, if you will.
That's it. So the films that were suggested: Reservoir Dogs,
Oh.
Scream, Bad Taste, Without a Paddle, Spaceballs, American Gothic, Wishmaster, Terminator, Executive Decision, Ocean's 11, Goodfellas, Back to the Future, Dementia 13 from 1963, not the 2017 remake,
I don't
and
know
Suburbia. So it was a real
Quite the
mixture.
list.
It was a mixture of films.
Yeah.
It got down to a final 4 of Scream, Spaceballs, Back to the Future, and Suburbia.
Okay.
Okay.
And unanimously, do you want? Hang on, have a guess which one you. I want you to guess which one you think.
All right. Spaceballs.
No, I didn't think it was. I think it'd be Scream.
Well, I thought it was going to be Scream because when I did the initial polls, because you can only do 4 options, Scream was by far the most voted for film. It was not Scream, however. We are doing Spaceballs.
Well, of course it would be.
Our-
so how was Spaceballs if it was Scream was by far the most
because I
voted film?
took it down to a final 4 because there was 4 different polls.
Oh, and then in the
Oh, but
final
overall
four,
it got-
was-
Oh,
Almost,
then I
yeah.
put so then the winner of each poll I put into another poll, and then Spaceballs, which was one of the out of the 4 polls, was actually one of the less voted for films, became the most voted for film.
Yeah.
What? So what even is Spaceballs?
Have you not seen it?
No.
Have you
not?
I
What?
don't think I've seen.
You ain't seen Spaceballs?
No.
It's a
So
spoof,
it's a spoof of Star Wars
Okay, great.
and probably Star Trek. Maybe I don't know.
It's
if
a Mel Brooks.
It's so
Okay, I
It's
need to
so
watch
fun.
this
It's got
film.
Rick Moranis.
Yeah, it's very
It's so good.
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Well, don't ruin the episode. Yeah, can't just be like, yeah, it's definitely great. We're gonna go.
I mean, I remember it being really good. I might watch it now, but this isn't as good as I remember.
So my only concern with this is we've spoken before about avoiding in the past doing casseroles of comedies.
Yeah.
Well, no, apart from maybe like things like Ghostbusters, right? What are your thoughts under those reasons? about
I
doing
think this could be quite interesting because it's such an old film. It's like 50 years old now. And so I think like you would have to recast it kind of thing, you know? I think like, and I think actually when you think about it, there's probably only 5 roles, like 5 major roles. And you know, I think it could be interesting actually. Like, I think because it's, how do I put this? It's not a subtle film.
No.
You know, like Mel
I can
Brooks,
imagine.
it does it kind of quite spoofy.
Yeah.
And it's very kind of on the nose. And I mean, there's probably some jokes that wouldn't fly nowadays.
So we can thank the Stupid History Minute podcast for that suggestion.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So our first episode of February will be Spaceballs. Whether we do a recasting on it or whether we can think of something else that we want to do instead, I don't know. But yeah.
Space meatballs.
Look forward to some
how much
Spaceballs
space
at the
meatballs?
beginning of February.
To be fair, I haven't seen it for a good couple of months now, so I'm going to have to rewatch it and remind myself.
Let's think about the cast. We'll break up the cast. We'll think about how we're going to do this, and then maybe, if we feel there's time, we also put forward our choice for a big film franchise that we think should be
Get spoofed.
But spoofed well.
Yeah.
Not like epic movie, not like hero movie, not another teen comedy or whatever it is. Not another teen
Bring
movie.
back the great
like
spoof.
good spoofs.
Yeah. Like the spoof of Nosferatu we've just said, we would definitely want to see.
Oh, Dracula Dead and Loving It, mate. Oh, I'm going to go find that.
I mean, I'm
going
gonna
to
watch it.
It's good. It's so good.
Okay, so with that all done and dusted, unfortunately there is no audio aperitif this week.
No.
Boo!
Sorry.
Come on, Tom.
But I think you've heard us chat enough. So until next time, I have been Jim. Goodbye.
I've been Nick. Goodbye.
I've been Sam. Goodbye.
I mean, now he's just done that impression. He just sounds like the guy from Men in Black.
He puts his hands on his hands. Like that.
Goodbye.
Movie casserole, casserole. Movie casserole, casserole. Movie casserole, casserole. Movie casserole.